Hey Thumpers, welcome back to another episode of Hyper Heroes. We are here to do a spoiler review of Justice League. Oh boy.
Oh baby.
This is going to be This has been a very interesting weekend. I'm Adam Hlavik, and I'm joined here with
Hector Navarro
And Augustine Rios.
So Justice League. Oh man. Yeah. The box office results are in for Sunday.
So it is Sunday, so the weekend is concluding.
Yeah, the weekend is concluding.
Yeah.
We won't have any official numbers on the box office of this movie until probably tomorrow morning. Right now, it is seated at $96 million, which is currently the lowest opening for a DCEU, formerly DCEU, DC Universe movie.
Careful
Formerly.
with your
Thank
terminology.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been trying real hard to say DC Films, DC
Right,
Films,
DC
Films,
yeah.
which, as far as I know, based off of a toy that I saw, is the closest branding I've seen for this franchise
Interesting.
from any sort of
multiverse
official
Interesting.
capacity. No, not the multiverse action figures, but rather like, you know how they have those, like, those are like the Mattel ones you can get at Target, but they also have the higher end ones that you can find in comic book stores
Gotcha.
Yeah.
that they'll do of comic book stuff, some cartoon stuff, the TV show like Arrowverse, and then like Supergirl also got one, and they have like interchangeable hands, and they're like super nice, like $20-$30 toys.
Yep.
They did one of Superman from Justice League, like the Henry Cavill one, and on the bottom it didn't say DCEU, it said DC Films.
Gotcha.
In the same way that every other.
Okay.
That's the closest I could find.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting
It's
for
an
that
actual
official
name.
answer.
Still not official.
I've bugged my poor bosses that help me shoot a video for DC once a week. I'm like, what do we call it? And they're kind of like, we're waiting.
They're
I don't
still
know.
waiting for the official word too.
So-
okay, interesting.
Absolutely. If you guys didn't
Interesting.
see, we did a non-spoiler. It was just Augustine and I. We did a non-spoiler review of Justice League. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I would definitely check that out.
Yeah.
But we are definitely going to be talking about spoilers. A lot of people have been asking us our spoiler opinion. I think we've all sort of just stayed off of social media and not try to post any sort of review that would potentially contain any spoilers. But this is a movie that obviously we all know famously. I mean, everything that happens in a movie nowadays gets aired all over the internet. This is a movie that's been through some has changed hands in a very interesting manner. Obviously, it started off as Zack Snyder's movie. Then it changed hands, and it kind of went through this phase where Warner Brothers wanted to go in a lighter direction. So we had Joss Whedon come in and do some rewrites, expand some character development. And then the movie honestly kind of feels like it's also had Jeff Johns' hands on it, Warner Brothers executive, other DC people on it. So it's a movie that has sort of gone through interesting phases.
It's been meddled with quite a bit.
Meddled with quite a bit, and a lot of that has been the reaction, the post reaction of Batman versus Superman, Suicide Squad, and then I think also Wonder Woman. I think they saw the success of Wonder Woman, how people really embraced the heroism, the optimism of that movie, and they thought, we got to put this in the Justice League. If this is what people are really attached to and what they want out of this franchise, we should probably.
It's
give
the
it
new
to them.
bar. It's the new bar, and I'm sure every single movie from now on is gonna try to reach Wonder Woman level, and that's their new like. This is it. This is what we have to do every single time.
Yeah. But it's really tough to talk about this movie like not objectively, because it's impossible to talk about any movie objectively. Like in a clinical way where you're not using things like emotion and life experience to inform how you feel about
we're not
a movie.
Journalists, Hector.
Exactly.
I mean, we could
We're
talk
just-
about it.
we're just three dudes.
Our objective views.
But like in this case especially, and we were talking about this beforehand, Adam, before we started, but because of the fact that we know of the production issues, I can't remember the last time a movie that was this big and this important had this level of like production problems or issues or changes or whatever it was. So it's a thing where it for me personally, unfortunately, I could not ignore that stuff while even I was watching the movie, because even at like the special effects level, and we're going to talk about it, even like the mustache thing, like just knowing the whole time, I'm thinking, man, Mission Impossible 6 is kind of ruining these great Superman moments for me, because you know what I mean, and I just kept thinking, Mission Impossible 6 better be fucking great, man. Because, and it's like to think at this weird like Hollywood production development slate level while you're trying to. I'm like, I want to enjoy Superman, but it looks so weird. And for me, I know some people weren't distracted. I was very, very distracted, unfortunately, and that's a real bummer. And I just kept thinking, what in the hell are they doing in Mission Impossible 6?
Exactly. The mustache is so critical that you couldn't get a fake mustache and put it on him for the rest of the.
That brings me to how I kind of feel about Justice League. And again, a lot of these production issues, for good and bad, were influencing how I feel about the movie, because a lot of it was me forgiving certain things, knowing everything that went down, knowing that we had a director who left to go be with his family, and other people are coming in with different ideas. So absolutely too many cooks in the kitchen. And basically for me, Justice League as it came together is not ideal in any sense of the word. And for me, there's a lot of compromise. For example, Superman is an incredibly inspirational and positive and upbeat figure. But he has a weird thing on his face, compromise. Do you know what I mean? Like, Justice League is this amazing team, the greatest team in superhero comics, the greatest team in comics that has an unbelievable lineup, and it's finally coming to the screen. Compromise, there's no Green Lantern in this, whether it's Hal, John, whatever. You know, that sort of level of like what an awesome cast, what an amazing cast. And the movie, I think, was like generally pretty well balanced between the characters, but certainly some characters got less than other characters. That's the compromise. The thing of like, what a great cast. Compromise is Cyborg and Flash and Aquaman did not get their own film going into this. So there's this yearning for me as we're seeing scenes with these, focusing on these characters, that I'm like, this is some really great stuff. I want more of it. But I understand, again, they're doing the inverse of the other company that did the solo movie, team movie.
Yeah.
They're like, let's flip it around and do it the other way.
Yeah.
So there's this idea of, okay, compromise. Like, are we going to get Flash? Are we going to get Cyborg?
Yes.
At this point, I don't know. At this point, we really don't know. And there's been a bunch of dumb rumors over this weekend of going, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
Right.
So there's a lot of this, I want to enjoy these little snippets, but I also want more. So there's this, the compromise thing, knowing that it used to be two-parter.
Yeah.
Going into one part, knowing that it used to be lead into Darkseid, probably going into, well, now it's just Steppenwolf is the villain and that's it. So there's a lot of things that's like, that's not an ideal Justice League story even for me with these kinds of things happening. We're getting the return of Superman, but it's not the sort of focus of the movie, I guess.
It didn't impact as hard as it should have.
And that's the compromise. So, I mean, we can get into it, but for me, there's lots of things of just like, I loved a lot of stuff, but a lot of compromise.
That being said, did you like the movie or you didn't like the movie? I know it's muddy waters for you because there's a lot to think about, but did you like it or did you not like it?
I can't. Overall, I don't think I did.
Okay.
But I like and love moments of it. And I am more excited about the future of this franchise based off of this one movie than I think movies in the past, with the exception of Wonder Woman, had made me excited for the future. I think at the end of the day, my ranking is still Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Justice League, Suicide Squad, Batman versus Superman. And I think that Man of Steel, for its issues, there's so much that I love, and it does feel more of a complete. But again, I know the compromise. This movie had the production of this film was really the thing that
Man of Steel and Wonder Woman, aside from maybe like Wonder Woman rumors, Man of Steel and Wonder Woman are the two movies of the DC film universe that appeared to have been like, we knew what we were doing.
Correct.
This is what we wanted to do. And,
very
and,
clear.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Man of Steel probably the most because it was the first one.
Exactly.
Right.
And it
There
was like,
a very
they're just
clear
making
vision.
a Superman movie.
And if people have issues with that film, and there's certainly things that I think that that could, in Man of Steel specifically, that I'm like, but not all the way quite there. But it did feel like a first film in let's go with Superman 2 and 3 and let's see where this character goes. But I still think that it was definitely a sort of a complete experience, and I love
it feels like a fully realized movie.
As it is, yes.
Exactly, a fully realized. And also just again at the superficial level, there's a lot of issues with special effects. There's a lot of issues with compositing. There's a lot of amazing special effects, but there is still a lot of stuff that I wasn't. It didn't help my experience of the movie. I wouldn't say that it quite necessarily hurt it, because I've seen movies with CG comparable to Justice League before, and I've loved that film or whatever. But it was just another reminder of I'm constantly thinking about the production of this film while watching it.
It's hard to
really,
forget
really
about
tough.
it. It's
really
hard to
tough.
forget about it, and especially because you're close to the industry. Like
Sure.
you know how things are working. Like
and we all knew each single update. Of
right.
as
we
this thing
knew
was happening.
everything. Like we were following closely here and like our personal lives and everything like that. Like it was deep. We were following it pretty hard because we wanted this to succeed. Adam, I think yours and our feelings came across pretty clear in the non-spoiler video.
Well, it was interesting. I had a friend message me. He's like, I'm hearing all these things about Justice League. So what, like, is the movie good or what is it? And this is how I explained it. I said, imagine you're making a pizza with your favorite ingredients. You put it in the oven.
Jalapeno, mushroom, and pepperoni.
Exactly.
And you're wrong if you'd put anything else.
Exactly. you put it in the oven,
kidding.
you bake it, and you pull it out. And the crust is a little soft and undercooked.
Okay.
And I was like, that's kind of what Justice League was.
Okay.
Needed a little more time.
Need a
A little more time. A little more time to bake in the oven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's honestly how I feel about this movie. I thought, look, if you're going to go out and you're going to change out, you're going to have Zack Snyder relieve his duties from the movie, you're going to have Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns, all these other people come in and sort of finish the movie and make changes and do rewrites and all that stuff, then you probably should have delayed the release. And I know that sucks because you already have kind of locked into a release.
Yeah.
And looking forward, it's really hard because you've got movies like Black Panther, you've got the Avengers movie, you've got Ant-Man and the Wasp, you have Star Wars. So it really kind of limits where you can place your movie. You don't want to delay it so far ahead that it sort of becomes a forgettable memory.
Right.
But also you have to then compromise.
Right.
You know, you then sacrifice things about the movie, the visual effects, the quality of the reshoots, the writing, the direction, the acting. For the most part, I think the movie had all the elements that I wanted. Like, I love that cast. The cast was really good. Some of the cast does have moments in the movie, but it is that whole thing. I'm always going to be of the opinion that I think, at the very least, Flash and Aquaman should have had a movie prior to this.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that every time I would talk to somebody at DC, they would say, we got to do something different than Marvel. And I was like, you don't have to do something different from Marvel. You have to stay true to who the characters
Exactly.
are. Aquaman and Flash come from big universes.
Yeah.
Lots of supporting characters, a lot of mythology, a lot of history, a lot of legendary sort of a legendary universe. And a lot of people like to compare, well, what about Black Widow and Hawkeye? Black Widow and Hawkeye
they're not Flash and Aquaman.
are supporting characters. They're tertiary characters who were part of S.H.I.E.L.D. And S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of was established from movie to movie to movie. We got to spend time with her in Iron Man 2. We got to kind of know who her character was. We got to know more about her in Avengers. With Hawkeye was definitely a supporting character who was just like, we're going to make him a villain.
Yeah. And everybody was fine with it because they're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
He was basically a grunt.
Yeah.
But the example of Black Widow and Hawkeye is really interesting because it comes from when Marvel Comics did the Ultimates and Mark Miller and Brian Hitch were redoing the Avengers style characters in this more realistic world. They had Ant-Man and the Wasp as part of the team as well, and in their second story arc they brought in Black Widow and Hawkeye with just the background of they're spies.
Yeah.
Because they're easier sells than Ant-Man or Henry Pym, who was Giant Man in the story, and the Wasp. Those characters had more focus. When they were looking at the movie thing, they looked at all the lineups of every Avengers team, and they're like, we've got to have Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. They're like, we're doing a Hulk movie, and let's put him on there. And he was on the first issue of the Avengers on the team, and then he left, so he's one of these, like, classic guys from the very beginning. But instead of going Ant-Man, Wasp, they knew these characters, Ant-Man, Wasp, tough sells. They would need their own film.
Right.
Let's do the Ultimates thing where we're just bringing in Black Widow and Hawkeye as this sort of like background of you guys are spies.
Right.
And then we can get to Ant-Man later and kind of work with it. Oh, Edgar Wright wants to do it? Perfect. We'll do it with him. We'll figure it out. Blah, 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 and eventually put him on the team later. Because again, those characters have, in the same way that the Flash and Aquaman have big powers, come from big universes, they would benefit from spending time with them so that when they're thrown on the team, it's less of, that's really interesting. What's all that about? What's more, what's the deal with that?
Right. And I think maybe that's where the movie sort of suffers a little bit. I think this movie is definitely made for fans of the DC universe.
Absolutely.
And that's not a bad thing. But at the end of the day, and we talked about this before, you look at the box office. Not that the box office dictates, but if you are making this movie simply for this small fan base of DC fans,
compared to the population on Earth,
it alienates a huge part of the audience.
Right.
And it leads to you potentially not making as much money at the box office.
Right.
The whole point of trying to make these movies for everybody is so you can then bring them in, inform them on who these characters are, what this universe is all about, so they come back for more. And I think
with any comparisons with any other team superhero movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fantastic Four, X-Men, those characters were created to work as a team and sort of have similar kind of origins.
The whole point was for them. They were a team from the beginning. And somebody brought up the point of like, well, what about all these other X-Men characters? I'm like, yeah, but when those books were established, they were established as a unit. You didn't learn about the backstory of those characters in those first issues.
And the world was, it's a school with constantly sort of shifting roster of students and teachers.
Yes.
This is the X-Men world.
Right.
Exactly. But again,
it's like if you start an Avengers movie with Spider-Man and you're like, but there's so much more to do here. It's like this is like you have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg. I think Cyborg, in my opinion, you could have absolutely tied his origin directly into the Justice League movie and just focused on it more.
And they sort of did. And I think that out of
all the new characters,
Cyborg ended up being my favorite. probably my favorite character in the film, and I was so surprised because I was afraid I wasn't going to dig this iteration of the character because I love Cyborg as a Teen Titan. I love Cyborg as a member of that group, and I think I was worried because, again, between Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman, I also think Cyborg can be a really tough sell.
Yeah.
When that opening scene came on screen with his father talking to this guy who was in a hoodie with his back turned, and he's this massive guy played by Ray Fisher, like staring out the window, just being so brooding, I went, oh, this is early Cyborg. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And that calls back to the sort of George Perez, Marv Wolfman, the new Teen Titans where they brought in Cyborg, and he was this angry dude because of his accident. And it wasn't until the sort of, some issues ended, he became the Cyborg that eventually was Booyah, Teen Titans Cyborg. And the fact that he said that at the end, love that moment. And I think that they really focused on him, and he really did have a nice arc.
Yes.
I think that, of course, he would have benefited from even more time spent with him, but I really want to see more of Cyborg.
Totally.
The very end, when he sort of like liquid metaled his thing, I was like, okay, because again, we've talked about how even just his suit design, it didn't look great in still images for me. It wasn't super appealing, but I had a feeling, I'm like, I think it's going to look, I hope it looks better in motion. It totally looked great in motion. I thought that
the VFX
great.
were much more updated too.
But
by the time
you
the
guys
movie
talked
came
about
out.
in your non-spoiler review that there were still a few moments of his head, and I could kind of see some of that sort of Tony Stark, to the Iron Man suit, sort of disconnected.
The animation when they fully replaced his face sometimes was kind of wonky, but for the most part it worked.
Generally speaking, I dug Cyborg effects wise, and again at the end when he just was like, "How about this is my suit?" and I was like, "God, I love that. That's great," and I really wanted to see more of that character. So
yeah, and that's the tough part for me is I really wish that we could have gone at least a movie for Flash and Aquaman to kind of establish their universes, and things were cut. Iris West scene was cut, and I honestly in this version of the movie, I don't see where that would have fit in. I think it would have been absolutely out of place. With Aquaman, because of sort of his ties to the mother boxes, because of Atlantis having sort of this history with the Amazons and the Amazon Atlantean War, fighting Steppenwolf in Apocalypse with the Green Lanterns, which I thought was awesome. What a cool Easter egg. That to me is a prime example of how you do an Easter egg really, really well. That can inform the universe being this much bigger thing. And I think Man of Steel did it really well, where you had Zod and Superman fighting on top of a Wayne satellite. It kind of just informed oh shit, there's more in this universe.
Like it's integrated.
It almost, for me, it's by the end of the movie, I think I was fine with the Green Lantern not showing up, but the fact that he was teased in the beginning, or a lantern was teased in the beginning, and this idea of all these different types of characters coming together and being sort of Earth's champions back then, I thought that thematically we were going to get that same sort of Justice League coming together by the end of this film. And when that first happened, I went, "Oh my God, are we going to get a Green Lantern in this? Is Hal Jordan going to show up at the very, very end? Maybe not even fight, but just be a part of." Just something, little thing.
Some show up in some capacity.
Didn't happen, and it was fine. But that little Easter egg was almost a thing of like, well, you're showing me the lantern. Are you all going to deliver on the lantern? I really want a lantern.
Like, don't tease me.
Want a lantern.
Don't tease
my balls
me.
if you're
a little bit. But I think you're right, Adam. It is still cool that this movie, I feel like maybe more than it just totally opened up the world because we get 100%. To Atlantis, we see more of the Amazons. It totally blew it up, and I was like, yeah,
100%.
And I love that. I think that if there's anything that the movie successfully did, it really made it feel like it's a part of a bigger universe.
Right, and that's why I don't love this movie. That's why I really like this movie. So I'm in the school of, given this movie's production problems, given the limited time that Joss Whedon had to shoot all this stuff over again, the limited time the VFX artists had to work on it, everything that happened to it, I still had a lot of fun with this movie. There was some amazing moments. Yes, there could have been more time spent with some characters. Yes, there was a little bit of objectification of Wonder Woman and some of the Amazons. Okay, we'll give them some of that. It wasn't Patty Jenkins at the helm. The VFX, not fully done, but a lot better than I thought they were going to be, except for the fucking mustache. Oh God damn that mustache. But for the most part, we had some amazing moments, specifically where Superman is messing up all the other Justice League members and Flash comes from behind and they lock eyes and Flash is like, this guy sees me. And if I don't move, I'm going to get wrecked. It's little things like that.
I love that moment.
It's the fact that they acknowledge there's a speed force. They said, hey, there's a speed force. And if you know Flash, Speed Force is probably one of the most important forces in the whole DC universe. And so they touched on that. You could compare Ben Affleck's kind of like acting, not acting, to the way Batman really acts as a member of the Justice League. He's kind of like, I kind of don't want anything to do with you guys, but call me if you need help, because I'm the only one who can save you if you really need help.
I did not mind Ben Affleck.
Exactly, I didn't.
A
I
lot
didn't
of people
mind him.
were looking at him very critically and going like, "Oh, he doesn't even want to be there." And I'm sure that a lot of rumors again in production are influencing that sort of view of the film.
Right.
But I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind it either.
I thought that he was allowed to flex some of his comedic sensibilities, which Ben Affleck can be very, very funny.
Yep.
Moment where Batman falls down, he's like, "Oh yeah,
something's definitely bleeding. Something's definitely bleeding." Yeah, absolutely.
That joke worked for me like a lot. Like I thought that was really great.
Right. And so my favorite part was when the very first battle we see, when they're fighting Steppenwolf, you see each member of the Justice League playing a role, like the role they would be playing if they were actually in a huge fight. Yeah. Wonder Woman going head to head with Steppenwolf, beautiful. She's the only person at that point who has the capacity to go toe to toe with him.
And Batman having a great exchange with Flash.
Exactly.
Yes.
Being a father figure.
One person.
Being a father figure to Flash, that's beautiful. Flash is confused. He's scared. He's never fought anybody before. And he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And Batman's just like, step up, man. Like, you gotta do this. You're a superhero now.
And the thing that I love about that moment, he says, save one person. And he's like, and then he goes, and then what? You'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's basically saying like, he's entrusting Cyborg or Flash to figure out that the right thing is to like go back, save more, save more. It's not
even that. It's just like, he knows, because he felt it the first time he helped somebody out. Yeah. You want to keep doing that because he knows Flash is a good person. So I love all these setups that they had because of all the potential. Because like you, Hector, I left the movie wanting to see more. Like now I really want to see a Jason Momoa Aquaman movie. I really want to see a Flash movie that's not Flashpoint. I really want to see the Green Lantern. I want to see more of everybody in this movie at this point.
Oh, didn't Flash even mention that he speaks sign language, gorilla sign language?
Yeah, he speaks gorilla sign language.
That's a Gorilla Grodd reference.
Great moments. It's just
funny little character moment that could potentially set up a massively important thing in the comic book universe. It's so funny.
Huge and an epic storyline too. Yeah. So all that, like, granted, yes, there are huge problems. Like, Clark Kent's alive again? What the fuck?
They don't explain
that either.
All right, we'll deal with it later.
But at the same time, it's like, I can't ignore, and I don't want to be a pessimist about this movie, because I could easily go and just be like, oh, well, it's not worth anything because they messed it up. I really want the DC universe to succeed. Yeah. So all this stuff, if they get another writer, another director, another team to work on this that picks all the best stuff out of this universe, you could come up with something amazing.
And just like Peyton Reed doing Ant-Man 2 from the beginning, we're all really looking forward to him with his sort of like, hey, hands off, like, let me do my vision. I'm really looking forward to any other writer, director, crew taking on any of these characters, either together or separate, from the beginning and being like, okay, you've got room to breathe. You hopefully are not racing to meet a release date, and let's see what you got. And every one of those examples, Augustine, I'm right there with you. Just like, I am so stoked for the future of this stuff. And the end credit scenes were real fun.
Yeah,
and
it was amazing.
A little bit of that compromise thing still. But the Flash and Superman moment was Pizza Chef. It was literally an Alex Ross image.
Totally.
It was an Alex Ross image that he first, I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, and you will, internet. He first created when he was doing a series of collector plates. And he drew Superman and Flash racing because it's this incredible moment. And I feel like at the end, I'm like, that's literally Alex Ross pose that they hit up. Cut to the end, Deathstroke and Luthor. Again, a lot of people didn't love the Lex Luthor version of Social Network from Jesse Eisenberg. And the fact that, just like in the original Superman, we do not see the bald Lex Luthor until the very end of the movie. But in this one, this post-credit scene, he shows up and he is full-on Lex Luthor. He's not grown his hair back that he's out of prison.
No,
he's full-on
fully
keeping it
realized Lex
full-on
Luthor.
suit. He's no longer the sort of tech bro, but he's the full-on suit. And a part of me is going like, I didn't love his casting, but the fact that they're leaning into this, great. Do you know what I mean? Great. Like, I want to see this very like squeaky-voiced Lex Luthor who's on a boat and who's doing deals with Deathstroke the Terminator. I'm like, fuck it. Like, and the fact that he says,
let's do it.
Shouldn't we have a league of our own? Like, I felt that was definitely a Joss Whedon, I know how to tease. I know how to whet the comic book fans' appetite.
That's super villain as fuck. Like, let's form a league of our own. Like, this guy wants to go toe to toe with Superman, with Wonder Woman, with everybody. So it's great. It shows that he's thinking much bigger than just like, well, let's see what we can come up with. No, he's already got his plan formulated.
And I think that the thing that made me really excited about that is, in the same way that Joss Whedon whether or not he was going to do the first Avengers movie. When he was talking to Marvel back in the day, he was like, whatever you do, the second movie the villain should be Ultron.
Right.
He knew that, like, out of all the Avengers the villains, he was like, the first villain is either going to be Loki and Red Skull or just Loki. The second one should be just Ultron.
Right.
The third one should be Thanos or whatever the end game is, right? Like, he knew that sort of thing. And I feel like for Justice League, the fact that they're setting up Legion of Doom before we get to Darkseid, I like that.
Yeah.
I think Legion of Doom is the perfect Justice League 2 threat, and the perfect thing that if and when that movie gets greenlit, and I'm really hoping it does, promote the hell out of that.
Absolutely.
Oh, you saw Justice League? Here's the Injustice League. Here's the Legion of Doom. This movie is going to harken back to Super Friends, the lineup, but it's going to be badass. And not only Jesse Eisenberg, not only Deathstroke, but we got a fucking Gorilla Grodd. We have a Sinestro. We have, you know what I mean? Just like Black Manta, like everybody.
Every bad motherfucker that is a villain.
I think that's a great idea. So I really like
great.
that. Love seeing Deathstroke. He took his helmet off. And then Joe Manganiello had very badly dyed white.
Like, why?
Again, at the compromise thing, I'm like, let Joe be Joe. Leave his very dark hair, because when they tried to dye the white, I didn't buy it.
It looks like it's bleached.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
It does.
I would rather them have a non-gray Deathstroke. And I'm okay with that. The timelines of these characters we already have an older Batman and a younger Flash, and who cares? Who cares? You do not have to be super comic book accurate all the time. I thought Joe Manganiello was great casting for Slade. I still think he is. Again, it's that compromise thing of like, snap, that's Jesse Eisenberg, but this is Lex Luthor. Oh snap, that's Deathstroke, but that white hair looks weird. It's a lot of this.
There's a lot of up and down.
Like, okay.
And it's easy to get lost in all that stuff, but I just want to reiterate all the potential that's in this movie.
Totally.
But before we go off the rails, let's start off with our least favorite parts. Just pick one, and the one, like Hector, what knocked you out of the movie the most?
Well, Mustache was very distracting for me, and I feel like for me there wasn't a specific moment where I was like, I hate this moment the most. But in the same way that Batman versus Superman took the story of the death of Superman, and it wasn't the focus, and I felt like it didn't necessarily, that story didn't have the time to give that element what it deserved. The return of Superman, I felt, was like a missed opportunity.
Absolutely.
I would have loved a return of Superman focused film, return of Superman in a Superman sequel, something where it could be given this weight where he comes back and I'm crying. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's Superman. He's come back from the dead. And
that's
this is
what it should be.
And it seemed like that it was very, very quick to get Superman to come back, to get this fight sequence, which it felt a little bit misguided at first, but again, that Flash moment. I was kind of like, damn, this is kind of great. This is kind of. I don't necessarily want to see Superman punch Wonder Woman,
right?
But
well, he doesn't punch her; he headbutts her.
And she headbutts him. But I didn't mind seeing Diana headbutt him. So it's this thing of like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to see these heroes.
It was
fight.
pretty brutal when she slammed on the floor.
Some superheroes fighting kind of makes sense. Hulk being mad for some reason in Thor, whatever, in Thor Ragnarok, but like, some superheroes fighting makes sense. But this, I'm like, no, but it's Superman. But I got past that and went, this is a really, really great scene.
It's a
great
good
character
scene,
moments. The Flash moment, especially, Diana was great. Batman sort of hanging back and then getting thrown into a cop car, and to see Superman at his most powerful, I went, he really is the most
unleashing kind of.
He really is the most powerful character of these six.
But overall, the impact of the scene is what let you down.
And I love that they brought Lois, but again, even to see in the way that the beginning of the movie set up little kids asking Superman questions and sort of trying to place his role in this universe as being this savior and this protector and this beloved hero, I think I would have liked to have seen more of a fallout of the return of Superman. Superman was resurrected from the dead. Like that would be a modern day. Oh, Jesus Christ has returned. Like it would be so mind blowing. So I just would have liked leaning more into that.
Yeah.
What
about you, Adam?
I think the biggest thing for me, the movie suffers is from the runtime. I think limiting the runtime to 2 hours really hurt it, because I think we could have allowed, even without having the origin stories of Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg, I think you still could have had the extra 20 minutes to sort of establish more of what these characters are doing, what universes they're from. And I think it really hurt Steppenwolf ultimately. I think ultimately for me, I would have wanted more of the why. Why is Steppenwolf doing the things? It's very glossed over.
Give one sentence about him being banished, and now he won't be.
It's very glossed over. And I think for me, in order for that to have worked a little bit better, I would have liked, honestly, more time. And I think also this movie to some extent sort of feels like there's a movie in between Batman vs Superman and Justice League that's missing.
Yeah,
that sort of establishes what's Batman been up to.
Right.
What has sort of been the fall and the effect of Superman, being dead. We get a little bit of a glimpse of it in the opening credits, but we don't really repay that at the end of the movie.
Right.
We don't ever see sort of the audience or the world witness the rebirth and the return of Superman.
And reacts to it.
Exactly, which I feel like doesn't pay off the beginning where we set up the world is on the brink of all these sort of things. Crime is up, Batman's disappeared, we don't know where he is, all that sort of stuff. And so they kind of retcon a few things. And I think to your point with Superman in the very beginning of the movie, we talked about this earlier, they set up Superman in this movie to sort of make it look like he is this beacon of hope, that he's always been this. And it is a bit of a retcon to Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
We didn't really get that from that Superman in that previous movie. So I get it. They're trying to they're trying to, correct whatever mistakes they felt like were done in the past.
As a bit of a shortcut, possibly.
A little bit.
Because I wonder if it would have been more work in the story and in the film to when Superman comes back, the world is still split. The world maybe is still like, dude, we thought you died and now you come back like you're an alien. Like what and would the work have been, well, now Superman, moving forward, will win us all over.
Right.
And could the movie just not afford to do that? Right. Superman is not the main character. There really isn't a main character. Maybe Bruce, maybe Batman. So maybe they looked at the story and went, well, we cannot devote this amount of time to sort of do this. So let's bring in this, again, on paper, love the idea of this cell phone scene. He turns around in his face, and I'm like, okay, compromise. Not ideal.
Yeah.
Not ideal. But
I see what you're doing.
Immediately thought Mission Impossible 6. Mission Impossible 6 is being filmed. It is being filmed. I love Henry Cavill. I really love him.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy.
He's so warm and he's so great.
He
in this
himself
role.
is not an issue.
No,
he's not the problem.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, no.
And speaking to Steppenwolf, at one point in the movie, he says this line that as soon as he said it, I thought to myself, if I never see a movie again where the bad guy says, "At last," and I'm like, that might be the most generic. We've literally heard it in every film ever. And again, it almost is almost a little bit like that. It's almost a little bit like that. It's the idea of just at last. And I was already like, I'm very checked out on this Steppenwolf story. And
he was
maybe
not.
there's a bunch of factors for why I'm checked out, but at the end of the day, I was checked out. And
and it's kind of a bummer because I think Steppenwolf and Apocalypse and Darkseid, those are all such cool characters. And a lot of people have said, in the comics, Steppenwolf is kind of But when you adapt it to film, you have an opportunity to make that character really badass.
Right. There's a reason why he's tied in with Darkseid.
Exactly.
He's not just a throwaway or like a pushover in the universe. So.
And obviously, with everything that happened with this movie, visually, they definitely try to change the visual style of the movie. Or maybe not change it, but to slowly guide it into something that's different than what we had previously done.
Yeah,
if you go back and you watch the Justice League trailers and you start from Comic-Con 2016 to the very last trailer that came out a couple months ago, tonally it is two very different movies.
Right,
and not to say that Zack Snyder was not trying to make a movie that had more heart, that was more uplifting, that was more hopeful. I think the pieces were all there, but I think they looked at Wonder Woman and they said, well, let's dial it to a 10. Not that that's a bad thing, but I feel like when you have such a limited time to then go back and retroactively change things.
Yeah.
And
in the middle of production of a film.
In the middle of
that's the
production,
thing.
do rewrites and reshoots and all these issues with characters. I mean, you look at a lot of the Superman stuff. I think a lot of that was Joss Whedon because of the fact we know
you could see that he has a mustache.
You could see what's
on.
affected by reshoots.
Right.
Again, we couldn't help but think like, wow, how much of Superman was shot when Zack Snyder was doing the movie? Like, because
there's some,
but it's like how much of you could not help but think like how different was the character?
Right.
How many scenes or how few scenes did he have, or what was his dialogue, or whatever the fact that led to how the amount of reshoots with this sort of new Joss Whedon Superman. You couldn't help but think it just because there's that little digital kind of reminder. And then it got to a point where I was even like, I had to catch myself. I'm even looking, I was thinking, okay, is this before or after the mustache? No, like, hey,
because there was
there was some shots
stuff.
where he felt very natural, and then there was those other shots where it's very clearly a little tiny mouth on his chin. Just
little something.
It's just his mouth was just a little too small.
Yeah.
But that goes to my least favorite point, the VFX. The VFX were kind of brutal to watch in this movie. They had so many close-ups with Henry. And I hate to keep drilling him on his mustache, but fuck, man, that we look at human faces 99.9% of our lives. We know what things should look like. We know when somebody has Bell's palsy and like half of their face isn't working, you know, like we pick up on little tiny things when somebody has a slightly lazy eye or like just something odd about people's faces. And it sucks to have the star character have such huge flaws in the middle of his face. It's rough. But also to go back to Steppenwolf, they had some close-ups on him that were rough. And then there was some cyborg parts where I'm wishing they just could have had more time. And this goes back to just them needing more time to finish all these reshot effects.
Well, like to your point, one of my favorite visual effects sequences in the movie is when they're in the tunnel fighting Steppenwolf for the first time. Flash runs around the tunnel.
Oh, that was
and
beautiful.
He electrifies the sword and pushes it back to Wonder Man. That to me, because you can definitely tell the stuff that like Zach shot had a lot more time with the visual effects, a lot more time, and
it was
shows.
super clean.
It's super clean.
Yeah.
Generally, Flash I thought was a visual effects.
Oh yeah, visual
success story. Like
Flash had no issues for me.
Yeah, and because a lot of that stuff we saw in the first trailer, the very first thing when they do the sequence in the tunnel, a lot of that was shot by Zack Snyder, and so. The visual effects very much sort of inform that because you look at some of the later stuff where they go in and they have to change things and do new composites. It sticks out. And it sucks because the work that is done on this movie reflects back on the people who worked on it.
Exactly.
And I know there's a lot of visual effects artists out there who probably are very upset because they wish, well, you just dumped a new third of this movie on us. You need it in a month. And it's like, Jesus Christ, do you realize how difficult this is?
They don't give them time. And also another thing that I was talking to Cameron about last night is the color palette that they chose. You could tell that the visual effects they had for the color palette, the dark color palette before, was hiding a lot of the errors that were in the VFX already. Like very simple shots where they were out in the cornfield. You know they weren't out in the cornfield at sunrise. They were on a green screen because it's very clear that they don't belong in that scene.
Sure.
Like there was just stuff that was really rough, and we were attributing it to the color palette of the whole movie being a lot darker than it actually was. A lot more desaturated, not very contrasty, just kind of like grayed out and muddy, which we'd seen before. So it sucks that the visual effects are such they just kind of knock me out of the movie. Yeah, they take a big hit. But I don't want to knock, like everything else that was beautiful in the movie. There was some really great stuff, like you said, Adam.
Yeah.
The Speed Force stuff was on point.
Yeah.
And it's cool because it's different from the Speed Force we see on TV as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they took those liberties and were like, well, we have a little bit of a bigger budget. Let's see what this really looks like.
I like this universe's interpretation of the Speed Force.
Absolutely.
I'm all for it. It's great. Cool. Want to see more of it.
And it feels different from the other two speedsters that we've seen in other franchises.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
Yeah, we've seen the slow-mo
Both
scenes.
Quicksilvers.
Yeah, both Quicksilvers. We've seen the scenes in which they're traveling really slow, but they're really moving really fast. But the way Ezra Miller did it, the way he portrayed it, the visual effects on it, I felt was beautiful. Which makes me want to lead into what are our favorite parts.
This is an easy one for me. It is the cast. I believe that everybody was really well cast. I think that even with Jason Momoa's Aquaman not getting more, and me wanting definitely more of Atlantis, and me not being a super big fan of the sort of like air bubble that Mara creates so that they can speak. I'm like, I thought we were going to get some underwater speech. I thought that would have been really cool to see some of that. But I understand the logistics of all that stuff. That little tease of Atlantis, I wanted to see more. I liked seeing Mara, but I wanted to see more. That it's definitely a lot of setup of maybe I'll be your love interest in the next movie. Maybe you will.
Maybe you will. Are you hot enough?
But
I don't know.
But despite all of that, I loved Momoa's energy and charisma and performance in the little that he got to do. You know what I mean? And his role just became sort of a Wolverine Thor on the team. There's just big, gnarly.
He was the rock star, dude.
And I was cool.
He was the kid on the Mighty Ducks, the bad boy.
Yeah, one of the Bash Brothers.
One of the. What's his name?
I
forgot
his name.
The original Bash brother. That's who he was.
I like the sensitive Barry Allen that Ezra Miller portrayed. I feel that he could even. He could honestly even be like a gay character or a bisexual character. But if they're going to bring in Iris, I think that's fine too. But I feel like I just loved he's so introspective and so interesting and so unique in the way that he spoke and so isolated. And the moment with his dad was great. Now, I also, again, watching this movie, couldn't help but think of when I saw the pilot for the CW Flash, I was moved to tears. John Wesley Shipp, Grant Gustin. These two actors had more because I'm sitting in that scene for longer, and I was moved to tears in that. And Billy Crudup I thought was really, really great in the 2 seconds that we saw him. But I want to see more of Billy. I want to see more of Ezra. I want to see more of this iteration of the Flash, who's not a fighter. A lot of people are complaining. I want to see Flash kick ass. I'm like, oh, hold on. I like the fact that the Flash is not a superhero.
Not confident.
He's the pusher and runaway guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see
He's the
that
kid
movie.
geeking out when he goes into the Batcave, like sitting in the Batmobile and then running up to the fire. Yeah.
I want to see. I loved his energy, and I want to see his movie where he does become, by the end of it, the superhero. And I want to see a movie where he's like, I'm on the Justice League, like I'm the, And of course,
fastest man alive. God damn it.
Gal was fantastic.
Of course,
I did not mind, and in fact, in a lot of moments, quite enjoyed Ben Affleck's portrayal.
Yeah.
And in this movie, won me over for Henry Cavill. I think as Clark more than anything. Again, despite the distraction, I'm like, I want to see a movie where we're allowed to have him and Amy Adams again, and let's spend some time with these characters and let me fall in love with their romance
relationship
and give him a kid and do what they're doing in the comics now, where he has a son and he's not Clark Kent, but he's going Clark something else. Like he's got he's undercover. So for me, it was the cast coupled with I want to see Jim Gordon come back, J.K. Simmons. I want to see this thing spider into a bunch of different movies and to visit all of these characters. And unfortunately for me, to sort of sum up, maybe we're summing up right now, but the Justice League means so much to me. These characters mean so much to me, more than any other superhero. And any one of these individual members, I wouldn't even say are my individual favorite superhero, but it's just the Justice League.
Right.
It's
that
a fucking awesome team.
It is the team. It is the A-list that I feel that I wish that the Justice League movie would have been the event to end all events.
I agree.
This, you know what I mean? This thing that would have been like Avatar money. The thing that would have just a crack in Hollywood and just be like the Justice, and if the people would have been talking about for forever, because man, when I was a kid, I wanted Christopher Reeve and Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I wanted that. I wanted since forever. But for me, the definite highlight was these actors are fantastic. These characters are really entertaining and charismatic. And although we're not getting the more of, why is Steppenwolf doing this? Why is the league necessarily even leaguing up? Let's just keep going.
Move on.
Let's move on.
Move past that. Yeah.
There's so much potential. I had a thought a second ago. Flash movie goes up against Gorilla Grodd, played by Andy Serkis.
Oh shit!
Oh,
son.
damn.
You think he'd do it again?
Son.
You think he'd do it again?
He's got tons of ape experience, dude.
He's
Tons of
done
it.
it 4 times.
Yeah,
4 movies.
Yep.
But just that idea of like, okay, all right, we're in it. We've stepped into the DC universe. This is no longer the Batman and Superman movie world.
Right.
I think Wonder Woman was the one to find the door, and Justice League was the one to break through it and be like, we're here. We're the DC universe now. We in the game. Now let's see Green Lantern. Let's see Martian Manhunter. Let's see, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. Let's see the Teen Titans. Let's see. And then I started thinking about Cyborg on a Teen Titans movie.
Yeah, exactly.
If he became the central character of, instead of Cyborg, it was like Teen Titans was coming out, and he met the new Tim Drake, because there's going to be a new Tim Drake. You know what I mean? And I just started thinking like, oh my God, we could finally get all these things, and it could be finally happening.
Yeah.
And hell, even later on down the line, of course, I want to see the new gods. I want to see Apocalypse. I want to see Darkseid. I want to see the High Father. I want to see this thing given the time and the weight it deserves. So
no rush.
No rush whatsoever.
I wasn't crying. I wasn't moved. I didn't love Justice League. It wasn't something that was inspiring to me. But when I walked out of there, I wasn't. I certainly wasn't depressed. I certainly wasn't bummed out. And at no point with any of these movies have I thought, gotta just reboot the whole thing. No, it's not how it works.
Yeah.
I am more excited about the universe from this movie alone than I have been from any of the movies up to this point.
Yeah. Heck, I don't know what else I can say after that. My favorite part of this movie was that it was a character-driven movie, just like you were saying. But to more specifically hit it on the head, I think Flash really made this movie for me.
Yeah.
Because he kind of served as a audience like surrogate, and to get everybody kind of like reacquainted with things and the new tone that they're trying to set here. It's just his performance, the way they portrayed him in every single form, I think was really great. It was really genuine. It was really sincere. And I think that's what made the movie for me, because it showed me that this universe is thinking about that kind of stuff rather than everybody being dark and brooding, which we were afraid of before. We were like, is Batman gonna stay the dark brooding guy? He should. Is Superman gonna be that guy? Because he shouldn't. And now Flash shows me that they can go have fun. They can have those jokes in there. Not saying that they need to have all those jokes in there. Sometimes those jokes didn't work, but they can go and portray real life human emotions rather than everybody being pissed and serious all the time, you know? And so that the character of Flash, more than his performance and everything, the overall message that they sent with him, I think for me is what really stuck out and what really made me love the movie, because this movie has a lot of potential. Yeah, a lot of potential for a lot of other stuff in the future.
The Flash, for a movie with 5 guys and 1 woman. Yeah, the Flash, it was not 5 of the same types of masculinity.
Yes, exactly.
The Flash is this new. He was sensitive and he was funny and he was endearing. Yeah, and he was not another huge, massive buff guy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we got Batman, we got Aquaman, we got Superman.
We got our buff guys.
And Cyborg was also another sort of just love the energies between them, you know. But I'm right there with you, Augustine. Flash is this he's this not this typical portrayal of masculinity, right? But he's this new type of thing that I want to see
He's like an anti-hero hero.
Yes,
you know, he's not the typical superhero. He's like scared. I love that he was scared at first. That was great. And Batman had to talk him into doing stuff because he just pushed people before. You know, that's what completely made the movie for me.
We just had a new trailer for Wrinkle in Time come out, and somebody on Twitter said, when Oprah Winfrey tells you be a warrior, you are a warrior. It's like when Batman tells you, you're on the Justice League and
save somebody.
You're gonna save.
You're gonna save somebody.
It's fucking Batman. Yeah. Like that's great.
The strength of the movie for me definitely is the characters, and I think you guys are both right. I think the cast is definitely responsible for that. Some of it is actually in the writing, like some of it is definitely informed by the way it's on paper. And I also love the fact that you do have these two sides. You have Batman, who's very much a leader. In terms of the male characters, Batman very much a leader,
like the reluctant leader.
Yeah, Aquaman definitely the rock star. They're both these very physically imposing characters. Cyborg is sort of the one who's very much he's having this inner monologue, figuring out who he is, why he is. Is he a monster? Is he not a monster? What can he do to sort of like come back out into the world so people don't really judge him for who he is? And then Flash is this very reluctant hero who doesn't necessarily want to do these things or doesn't know how to approach these sort of things.
He's scared. He doesn't know.
He's terrified. And I love that it definitely gives you different shades of the portrayal of male characters, because I think in some of these other superhero movies, they all feel the same. They just come from different worlds.
Right.
Whereas
just
this, it kind of gives you a
big
spectrum.
buff guys who aren't afraid of anything and punch everybody else
and then
in the
you have
face.
Wonder Woman, who's very much kind of in this, very much in a leadership role too.
Oh, absolutely.
Who's very much saying like, follow my lead. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to approach it in this way. We're not just going to go in there and wreck shit.
She's like, I didn't expect to lead, but I will definitely lead this team.
And then with Superman, I think it's great that we're finally letting this character sort of embrace who he's always kind of been in the comic books. And if it took getting through 3 movies to get there, that's fine. I do think that maybe they should have, they could have done things differently to sort of bring Superman back. I wanted to feel more punch when Superman comes back. I wanted to be more emotionally moved by it. I wasn't. But I love what he did while he was in the movie, and it makes me excited to see these characters in future movies. I want to see, obviously, Flash, Aquaman. I want to see a new Superman movie.
I love that he saved a building full of people by lifting the building and moving it out of the way. That's cheesy as fuck, but it's so good. That's what Superman would do.
That's Superman. I love all that. So I think even though, yes, there are a lot of things in the movie that don't work, a lot of it is due to reshoots, rewrites, all these issues that have been happening with this movie. But I think the characters are what hold it together. And it makes me excited for the future. And teasing things the way that they tease, that felt a really natural way of doing it. And, you know, a lot of people complaining about, well, Marvel does post-credit scenes, DC shouldn't do it. It's like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No studio holds the copyright on post-credit scenes. I love the fact that they just went, fuck it, let's just do it. Let's do Flash
They did the fun
Superman.
one, which was amazing. That's what I wanted to see in this.
If you lose, you're off the team.
And he's stretching.
And then they do one that potentially sets up future movies. So it's like, yes, you just blew the lid off the universe, and it allows you to now do whatever you want. It doesn't mean that you have to do Injustice League or a second movie. It just means that the potential is there. That's all it does. And I will say that I actually would really like to see what an extended cut or a ultimate cut, what it would look like, what it would bring back.
About it. You absolutely can't. Again, just because
this
you know
is very
how
much what Superman and Superman 2 were in 78 and 81. Richard Donner being pulled off of Superman 2, Richard Lester coming in, reshooting like 50 to 60% of the movie, calling calling it his own. But then, for 30 years, people were like, well, what was the original Superman 2?
What
then
was that?
We just got to wait 30 years, man.
No. And even now, there's already deleted scenes popping up.
Yeah.
So, and we're getting a lot more of like what Cyborg was all about, the Iris West scene. So I'm really curious, and I'm pretty sure if there's any movie that is going to get an ultimate cut, it's going to be this.
I hope so. I really hope so.
And we'll see. But
a rated R version. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
don't know
I'm
about
just
that.
kidding.
But at the end of the day, this is a movie. A lot of people were asking, should I go see it? I'm like, look, if you're really curious about what happened with this movie at the end of the day, despite all of its hurdles that it had to go through, go watch it.
Yeah, that was always a difficult question for me, because when people ask that and they say, I'm a comic book fan, I'm a superhero movie fan, people ask that stuff, I'm just kind of like, it's the fucking Justice League.
Yeah,
If
You
care
shouldn't
about
even
the
be a
Justice
question
League,
if you care about the Justice League.
Right.
and the same was true when Batman versus Superman came out. Whatever your feelings were about the movie, I was telling people, I'm like, I don't want to tell you what, like, I don't want to tell you go see it or don't go see it.
Yeah.
If you care about Batman and Superman, you as a human have to make that decision. Like,
Right.
go see it. Some people be like, well, I don't have all the money in the world. And I'm like, I get that, man, but there's dollar theaters.
Just don't buy a
Yeah.
cheeseburger.
They're like, I don't
Or
know.
just wait until it comes out, on DVD
Sure,
or Blu-ray or whatever.
But
you
don't
can
be
buy
like, I love these characters, but is it a bad movie? I'm like,
That's up to you to make
it's,
up.
if you love these characters, I don't know. I can't.
At the same time, I love that people come to us and like ask our opinions
man.
of it. It's great.
But I'm
because
always
they
going to
trust
tell you to
us.
watch it, unless it's
Exactly.
a heaping pile of shit like Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that actually did
Honestly.
actively. I told
actually-
people to
yeah,
avoid that, but in
yeah.
that case, I was like, "There's 2 other Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah,
This is the
watch
first time there's ever been a
these.
Justice League movie." That's
Just
all
hand
I'm
them
saying.
some comic books
That's
and
what
say,
I'm saying.
this is the best thing we have so far.
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
Some
Agreed.
comics.
At the end of the day, I would say go watch it, make up your own mind about how you feel about it. If you love the movie, then great. You'll love the movie.
I'm going to tell people to watch this because I've gotten surprising answers from people who I
Yes.
thought would love it. They're just like, I
I
didn't dig it.
hated it.
I didn't dig it at all.
And
I'm
the
like,
opposite side, too.
yeah, exactly. I'm getting very opposite things. So at the end of the day, it's your decision. You're going to make up your own mind. You're going to see it through your own unique eyes.
Yeah.
So watch it. Do yourself a favor and go watch this movie. And if you're done with the DC universe, then you're done. If you're excited like I am, then let's keep hoping for the best.
Yeah. Watched it on IMAX. Loved it on IMAX.
It was great in IMAX.
We saw it in
Watched
3D.
Oh yeah, what
Loved it in
3D?
Doug
3D
the
talk.
3D.
Yeah.
Doug the 3D.
Good
Doug
3D?
the 3D.
Liked
So
it.
watch it in 3D.
He liked it more than Thor Ragnarok, and I was like, "Madam, you."
You
I
son of
I
a.
did. But I will say the one, and this is probably the fault of the theater, the projector was really dim.
And the subtitles are in the film. Our stupid
completely
projector.
cropped off.
We're like
Why were
halfway
there
through a
subtitles
subtitle
in your film?
dude.
It was
Because
the scenes in Russia.
Yeah, the Russian characters
Oh,
speaking Russian.
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wait, what are you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
Gotcha,
Russian family.
Gotcha.
Yeah, subtitles were lobbed off, and it was a little too dark.
Yeah.
In IMAX, it's bright, it's
Cool.
vibrant, it looks
Yeah.
awesome. Go watch it. Go watch
Yeah.
it. Make up your mind.
Yeah.
If you do end up watching the movie, let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. What do you
Comment
hope?
down
What are you
there.
hopeful for in the future of this franchise? What
Yeah.
did this movie give you that maybe was a surprise that you weren't expecting? That you think, oh shit, all of these things are now possible. I'm super curious to see what you guys say. As always, find us all over the interwebs. Hector, where can we find you?
At Hector is funny. Augustine.
You can find me at L_Santo Taco.
And you just find me at Adam Havoc, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you thought about Justice League, and we'll catch you in the next review.
Bye.